Images to show that Wing Commander Abhinandan, who was flying a MiG-21, shot down the Pakistani Air Force's F-16 jet. Parikshit Luthra joins us with more from there. Parikshit, can you take us through the information that the Indian Air Force has shared with the media earlier?
Well, it was a short briefing by the Indian Air Force by the head of the operations wing of the Air Force, Air Marshal R.G.K. Kapoor. And in that briefing, he showed 2 maps, also showed 3 radar images to prove that we had irrefutable proof to tell the world that, yes, a Pakistani F-16 was shot down in that dogfight with Indian jets on the 27th of February in the morning. He pointed out to the radar images to show that there were 3 F-16s in front of the MiG-21, which Wing Commander Abhinandan was flying. And in the next radar image, you could only see 2 of the F-16. So he said that that was one big proof to show that one F-16 had been shot down. At the same time, the Indian post in Nowshera saw 2 parachutes going down, and that was one parachute of Wing Commander Abhinandan and the other was of the Pakistani pilot flying the F-16s. He also pointed out that there was radio chatter that was picked up, also intercepts by the AWACS, air warning and control systems to prove that F-16s were used by Pakistan, and one F-16 was shot down by the Indian Air Force, by the plane that was being flown by Wing Commander Abhinandan. The Air Force also showed some maps to indicate that it was a sub-scored area in Pakistan where the F-16 came down, and it was Tangar area in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where the MiG-21 being flown by Wing Commander Abhinandan actually came down. The Air Force also said that they had more proof, more evidence to show that the F-16 had been shot down, but because of national security concerns, they're not putting out that evidence in public domain.
Right, Parikshit. So there you have it. That story following up from the foreign policy, the US statement saying that the F-16s in Pakistan were accounted for. So that development coming in from the IAF today, where they say that they have radar proof as well as radio chatter showing that that F-16 in fact did go down. Now, moving on from there, following the announcement last week regarding the intent to merge shares of Indiabulls Housing Finance and Lakshmi Vilas Bank, saw sharp and contrast movements in trade today. So while Indiabulls declined by over 5%, Lakshmi Vilas Bank rose to hit the 5% circuit. Now remember, according to the proposed amalgamation, shareholders of Lakshmi Vilas Bank will get 14 shares of Indiabulls for every 100 shares held in the bank. Now, all eyes are on the RBI for that deal plan to fructify. Lata Venkatesh joins us with her take on that proposed merger. Lata.
Well, the Reserve Bank has made one intent very clear. It has already put out a press release saying that it had no knowledge of the deal before it was announced, or rather the proposal was announced, and the presence of its directors on the board of Lakshmi Vilas Bank should not be construed as approval because they did not participate in that meeting in any fashion. Now the point is, what will RBI do? Now, I just want to flash back to RBI's mindset in the 2013 round when, Bandhan and IDFC got the license. At that time, the initial guidelines actually said real estate companies and maybe I think broking companies should not apply. The RBI's argument maybe at that time being that these two are very aggressive industries and banking is a conservative business. So, you don't want to link the two. Thereafter, of course, a parliamentary panel prevailed upon RBI and those clauses were removed. And, RBI was told to, not ab initio deny anyone the right, but to examine case by case. And let us remember in that round, Indiabulls did not get the license. Well, to be fair, many people did not get, only 2 people, IDFC and Bandhan, got. So now what will RBI do? The on-tap licenses rules came in August 2016. They are being tested for the first time. One of the clauses is that the non-financial businesses of the applying entity should not be more than 40%. Indiabulls clears that by a mile because the real estate business gives them just about 10-15% of their income. So that's not a problem. The other one and the big one is the fit and proper clause. So usually for this, RBI writes to all the other regulators, to SEBI, income tax, and ED, IRDA, asking them if there are any cases of regulatory breach by the group in question. They'll also go into the reasons why in the previous round the license was not given. So basically, they will do everything to ensure that they are fit and proper, that they have been conservative and clean and upright in their investments. Even if the license is given, chances are that they might ask for a foolproof mechanism, like ring fence the entity, set up a separate non-operative financial holding company and ring fence it from the other group companies, so that you don't get cheap savers deposits and pass it on to one of your group companies. These kinds of things is the kind of conditions they may put in, but it's a long wait. There have to be first the EGMs of the two entities, which have to agree, and then it goes to RBI. Probably 6 weeks later, there will have to be a new government in place by then. So we have a long wait ahead. Let's see how things pan out. All I'm telling you is that RBI sets the bar very high, very, very high to give a banking license, because if a bank fails, it's taxpayers' money on the line, and therefore it's not like giving a driver's license. This is a massive power, and therefore it's given after a great deal of thought.
Right, Lata, absolutely. Many thanks for joining us with all the details. So there you have it. That is how the situation currently stands and the way forward regarding that merger between Indiabulls Housing as well as Lakshmi Vilas Bank. Many thanks, Lata. Now, the SBI-led consortium of banks has invited bids for Jet Airways. The lenders are planning to sell up to 75% stake in the airline. The last date to submit the expression of interest is the 10th of April. Now, Ritu Singh is here with all the highlights from the expression of interest document. Ritu, what kind of investors can bid for the company, and what's the criteria for selecting them?
Well, after a 2-day delay, banks have now invited bids to sell up to 75% stake in Jet Airways, and any strategic or financial investor can bid to acquire this stake in Jet. Now, the deadline to submit expressions of interest ends at 6 p.m. on 10th April as per the documents, and banks are looking to sell a minimum of 31% and a maximum of 75% equity stake in Jet. But do remember, with the debt conversion being stalled, the shareholding pattern for Jet currently remains unchanged, which means Naresh Goyal holds about 51% and Etihad 24% stake. So the lenders don't exactly hold direct equity stake in the airline, but we understand, of course, some shares are pledged to them. Therefore, the new investor would likely be buying equity from the existing shareholders. Now, as per the EOI document, if a strategic investor bids, the bidder must have a minimum net worth of 1,000 crore rupees as of financial year 18 and at least 3 years of commercial aviation experience. If a financial investor bids, they must have assets under management worth 2,000 crore rupees or availability of funds worth at least 1,000 crore rupees. Alternatively, the bid can also be made by a consortium of not more than 3 entities, with each entity holding at least 15% stake in the consortium. Now, do remember, we had earlier reported that private equity players like TPG Capital, Indigo Partners as well as NIIF had shown interest in bidding, as had its partner Etihad Airways. But will any of them actually submit bids? We'll find that out on Thursday.
Right, Ritu. Many thanks for joining us with all the details from there. And from aviation to auto, where industry body SIAM has released the March sales data for the sector, and it doesn't paint a pretty picture as far as domestic demand is concerned. So total passenger car sales are down close to 7% for the month compared with the same period a year ago. And while overall two-wheeler sales are down 17.3%, standalone motorcycle sales have fallen 14.3% year-on-year. The only positive data to come out is from the commercial vehicle segment, with medium and heavy commercial vehicle sales up close to 5%, and the total CV sales coming up just 0.3% higher. Total vehicle exports, though, have gone up by 4% during the period as well. And what comes as another setback for Vijay Mallya, United Kingdom court today rejected a written plea against his extradition to India. Sanjay Suri joins us now from London with all the latest from there. Sanjay, so what next for Mallya now?
A clear setback to Vijay Mallya at the first stage of the appeals process, and this is only the first stage of that process. At this stage, a single judge of the appeals court has refused leave to appeal to Vijay Mallya. He will now go in appeal in a renewal process, as it is called, and this second appeal, the renewed appeal that is, will go for oral hearing before the appeals court. He has to file that application within this week. If that appeal is granted, only at a third stage will this go to the full hearing of the appeal. So we still have one more stage where he is seeking leave to appeal. If that leave is refused, then that exhausts the process. If that leave is granted, then a full hearing still is due of his appeal against the Westminster Magistrates Court order. Clearly now we are at the last stages of this process. This week we will have an application from Mallya. We should fairly soon have a date on which that hearing will come up in the court, and it is at that stage that we will know whether this is the end of the process or whether really this will be in for a short extension. But it's not very long before we have a final decision.